The Potentialism Accelerationist Manifesto. We are at a critical juncture in history. The debt cycle of the Western world is coming to an end, which means that money will become worthless and or be exchanged with less valuable currency. Due to this, combined with the evil agendas, wars, and disasters, the world is being rocked by crisis after crisis. Democracy is declining, the climate's changing, the world's pollution explodes. Propaganda and extremism are on the rise on both sides. Western economies aren't delivering. Inequalities, unfairness, and poverty are exploding. The evil by the super rich and politicians is detonating, just as corruption and ripoff are everywhere. Hardly anybody is being held accountable. Investments outside of corrupt networks are hardly ever profitable. Delusional, unscientific ripoff agendas like net zero regarding greenhouse emissions are being pushed onto people without even taking care of prerequisites or people with no true alternatives. However, the most dangerous greenhouse gases, GHG, are and polluters are not being addressed. Pessimism has swept the globe. Institutions squandered, trusted systems falling, exploitation, fraud, and ripoff are blatant and evident. And political theater is shattering, while decisions are mostly taken by unelected, questionable people. Everyone deserves to understand the agendas, propaganda, and top issues at stake with clarity, rigor, and reality without getting too emotional or divided, the opposite of what our media is doing today. People shall not just fall prey to disinformation, misinformation, and false notions of balance. Objective, complete information and discussing and evolving scientifically optimal solution strategies shall form the basis for innovating out of many, mostly man-made crises. That requires asking the right questions and answering them efficiently, completely, and scientifically towards the most ethical goals of a bright future for all humanity. The stakes are too high for anything else. Many billions would suffer and billions might die. Our mission is to help you understand the agendas, truths, and issues that matter most as a basis for informed decisions, privately, politically, and professionally, and as an organization. We keep it real, objective, complete, and razor sharp. We're not here to delude people, spread propaganda, divide, emotionalize, or fearmonger. The issues today are too big and urgent for that. Our goal is to take you one step closer to becoming an informed expert, not just a passive consumer of junk, censored news. Someone who understands the issues that matter with depth, resonance, and focus that can take well-informed decisions on that basis. The issues, facts, and decisions that matter belong to all of us. They concern all of us, and we deserve better when it comes to them than we're currently doing. It's up to each of us to understand them well, and to try to find, discuss, and test solutions with a little help. That's our job at Potentialism. Welcome. Only innovation allows economic growth on a finite planet. And it has been the driver of higher living standards globally. And that should be accelerated in responsible ways. Acceleration is also needed to compensate for too bureaucratic, impractical academic research in the past that led, e.g., the pipelines for practical, highly profitable innovation, run empty, even in IT and AI, to still avoid 20 plus impending cataclysms at the last second and win the AI arms race against the BRICS countries. We can be techno-optimistic, as technology is the most likely factor to solve our issues. But optimism or euphoria must not make us overlook serious risks, let us become naive or follow herd instincts. The economist William Nordhaus has shown that creators of technology typically just capture 2% of the economic value created, while the other 98% flows as social surplus throughout society by creating supply and diffusion ecosystems and improving workplaces and private lives. Technology which increases productivity raises the associated wages and creates new business opportunities and jobs for others. With enabling technologies that is extremely efficient, Ray Kurzweil's law of accelerating returns states that technological advances tend to feed on themselves, increasing the rate of further advance. If employees are paid fairly and the real inflation is overcompensated to account for their improved experience, they can use their ever-increasing human wants and needs to create growing economic demand and prosperity. We have the opportunity to create several new innovation hotbeds like Silicon Valley, and better with intelligence, creativity, and capital being the driving forces behind upward spirals. Capital is easily available through central banks and fractional reserve banking, i.e., the ability of banks to create around 90% of credit amounts as new money. Bringing that together with smart, highly qualified people and coordinated efforts along specialty domains like, e.g., Taiwan did regarding its chip technologies, all facilitated by latest AI without corruption, evil agendas, or bureaucracy. It's a fantastic recipe for creating much more prosperity and solving our problems efficiently and fairly. Comparison to related proposals. Two abbreviations I need to introduce regarding acceleration. One, DAC, decentralized, defensive, differential, and democratic. Number two, EAC, effective, optimistic acceleration. Then they're going to be that only for the super rich who have already started to distribute themselves into bunkers. For the other 99.9% of us, they don't represent anything to be optimistic about, as AIs and robots of the super rich are going to take their jobs and thus money and power without effective guardrails, since we have no time for them if we follow their argumentation. In contrast to EAC, we don't use our principles on cult-like beliefs or materialistic philosophies, but always on latest science, love, and compassion. We don't manipulate readers into just believing that our leaders are strong, courageous, and chosen based on merit. We live and prove it. Even if one considered that a natural progression related to thermodynamics, as EAC proposes, it's still unfair, not acceptable, too risk ignorant, externalities denying, and thus is what a good government should address to make it fair and manageable. Governments must develop strategic technology initiatives, investing in creating innovation hotbeds for various new specialty domains, and generally create new high-tech and caring jobs, provide good services for their citizens efficiently. Potentialism has such a detailed concept on this and other topics towards maximally ethical high-tech future. We need objective, complete discussions with neutral organizers and hosts, not like the recent debates. The right objective questions, and without omitting interesting, legitimate questions, ideas, or positions. We need to learn again to discuss objectively and develop techniques to ideate and collaborate maximally efficiently with the help of AI and ideally in group flow. We need to learn to extend that to modern distributed and remote work, especially in Web3 DAOs, distributed autonomous organizations. Many super rich seem to have just given up, and they retreat to bunkers, preferably in New Zealand and other planets. We see that not only from vertical farming, which may never become profitable except for bunkers, but also from most other areas that receive investments. All energy-related systems are moved from exhaust-creating technologies to electricity with, e.g., mini nuclear reactors, AI-based farming, question answering, and entertainment, and AI automated weapons, from bunkers to hypersonic space technologies. The world, in around 20 categories, is just one step away from the abyss. E.g., regarding debt collapse, the Western countries are nearer the end of their debt cycles, and the USA is adding $1 trillion of debt every 100 days. Bubbles and ensuing crashes, growing inequalities, and all levels from states down to people in a city, evil agendas, high unemployment, high inflation, and cost of living crises, civil wars, collapse of public and medical services, pollution, ecosystem collapses, over-exploitations, resource scarcities, goods and service, as well as supply chain collapses, natural disasters like earthquakes, floods, electromagnetic pulses, EMPs that destroy electronics. After just 7 days without electricity, we would be falling back into the Middle Ages. Pandemics, explosion of bureaucracy, corruption, crime, increasing societal divides and political inefficiencies, society sclerosis, sharp societal value decline, complacency, mass delusion, psychosis, and thus freeze or give up, laziness and accepting governmental failure without consequences, no intergenerational justice, and thus barbaric actions. Too many innovative plans involve giving a small group of people extreme and opaque power, naively hope that they will just use it wisely. In vain, as we know that since the pandemic. Upon closer look, often exactly these people are behind those plans. Stepping out of the media, financial slavery, and control systems with its fear codes. If they wanted to genuinely improve the world, they would hire and listen to true experts instead of easily gullible teenage autists whose parents, by coincidence, have a marketing agency working with the super rich. If they wanted to avoid global warming, they would first openly discuss and identify which factors influence global temperatures. But instead, they're ostracizing anybody who comes up with factors other than CO2. Then they would identify the most climate gases, the most dangerous climate gases, which of current science are HFCs, or hydrofluorocarbons, anesthetic gases, laughing gas, and methane, all by a factor of 80. to many thousands more climate dangerous than CO2. However, trusting the science would mean that factory owners would have to modernize their factories instead of the also comfortable option of blaming, surveilling, and taxing users who often don't have a practical alternative. E.g., those rural areas with insufficient public travel or charging infrastructure, or those who have to drive long distances from or to such areas. For becoming net zero regarding greenhouse gases, GHG, emissions within the next decades, we have only a small fraction of the required minerals, of the required electricity, of the grid, storage, of the security, of the supply, of the skilled labor, of the financing. And it will make those who try to get it highly uncompetitive due to its costs and due to it probably never breaking even. Politicians aren't even taking serious measures to overcome these shortages, but also privately act against their own recommendations. So it won't happen. It is a pure delusion to massively transfer wealth from the population to the super rich. Similarly, a search and news AI can perfectly censor what you hear of, surround you with consistent false narratives, and manipulate you into buying or subscribing non-optimal offerings. If the Chinese or Elon Musk's approach of integrated solutions with finance and e-commerce prevail, then you'll be completely in their hands. These are just some of the indicators of the evil agendas we must replace with true solutions. We don't have time for governmental or corporate agendas that coincidentally fail in such a way that the super rich get richer again, and the rest lose their buying power or get sick, so that the super rich can yet again get richer by treating those additional sicknesses regarding green transition, carbon offsets, war, healthcare, banking. More than half of all Americans suffer from chronic diseases. And additionally, addictions, depression, mental health, and other issues are highly prevalent, producing gigantic costs for the population and big profits for others. All other Western countries are following these trends that need to be reversed. A key mechanism is the domination of societies by biased media, finance, and other big corporations, with corruption and control systems that work by indebting people, using manipulation techniques like fear-mongering and pressure to keep people from thinking and acting as sensibly as they could. Henry Kissinger suggested to control food, energy, and money to control people, continents, and the world, respectively. Related interests of corporations want Western governments to do many expensive things, like protect their interests with an expensive global military, get and protect the materials they need, all at a low price for them, pay many subsidies and hundreds of privatization of profits, but socialization of cost schemes from which only they benefit, like mass immigration to lower wages. At the same time, most of them do everything to pay as little tax as possible, going into various legal and illegal tax evasion schemes. That way, the corporations effectively withhold from their governments the money they need to do what the corporations want them to do. The people also need their governments to pay for many things. They're not just organized enough, don't have the funds, job, and technology possibilities, similar to the corporations, to influence the governments to do positive things on their behalf. The rich, together with politicians, have been continuing to shift the financial burden from the super rich to the poorer people. but have come to a jam just before a breaking point where worsening the conditions of normal people and more shift of wealth to the super rich isn't possible without risky uprisings. Their last option is to borrow money, and that at record speed of 1 trillion every 100 days in the USA, i.e., 13% of our GDP, or 111% of the US yearly tax revenue. Behind the Fed, all big lenders in foreign states or corporations, instead of imposing taxes or tariffs, their deal is to instead lend the money, have their say, get interest, and in the end, get paid back, while mainly the normal taxpayers have to effectively pay for this with their hard work. For a thriving society, such schemes need to come to an end, either by upgrading our capitalism, as suggested by potentialism, or in the form of a collapse. If we accelerated before solving the issues, we'd also accelerate the collapse. Which politicians do you know that aren't just silent about the agendas, risks, and negative outcomes for the general population? They could actively propose solutions and negotiate to solve them, but that's really hard work and would certainly touch their donors, so they don't do it. Instead of giving up, we need an unwavering commitment to hard and honest work to detect, fully analyze, openly discuss, and solve all issues without protecting any corrupt interests. Not the government should control its citizens. That's totalitarianism. But the citizens should control their government, especially how it spends our money. That's democracy, where the people have the power. Responsible development. Responsible innovation and acceleration needs to start at the top with owners and decision makers, not with non-binding self-commitments around AI for marketing or actually election manipulation purposes. Regulating inherently hallucinating AIs is like nailing pudding to the wall. It's bound to fail, and funding those types of researchers that have been failing for decades in AI ethics or regulations is not going to solve it. Only societal control with governmental neutral experts in the teams is proven to be efficient. What counts is the ownership, management, government, and governance of such projects, and in how far acting people have freedom and opportunity for unethical actions or hidden evil agendas. Good leadership gives to people. It doesn't take from them to make the super rich richer, except for using minimal funds to avoid uprising. Instead, we need honesty, fairness, and true meritocracy, welcoming all ideas to capture the breadth and depth of our unique human creativity in creating and continuously improving the best strategies to innovate out of the many crises efficiently without omissions, corruption, agendas, delusions, manipulation. Only the right optimal incentives for everybody get us to the right outcomes. The super rich made fantastic profits by reaping all the low-hanging fruit in smart digitization, big data, and AI, often making things 1,000,000 times more efficient. Now those are gone. And competition with BRICS seems like China is getting much tougher. But instead of reinvesting those fat profits, if not for the good of humanity, then at least for further practical research, R&D, But the super rich just hoarded or invested most money into rip-off schemes like subscribing to green electricity, which is not possible due to Ohm's law, dictating that electricity comes from the nearest power plant due to cable resistance. And business models building on that, like electronic vehicles, EVs, crypto scams, and other nonsense. Bots distract, lie, and marketing is rigging elections. When a service is free, then we are the product. Companies spy on us. Mapping and search software was created with intelligence or military funds, and those creating space companies. Not so much for space tourism, but to deliver supersonic projectiles. We should be vigilant regarding the real motives, underlying agendas, and thus governance and ethics experts should be directly and actively involved in such projects, have access to all materials, and participate in all relevant meetings. Inequalities are growing so high that they are on the brink of becoming a question of life and death for both the under and the overprivileged. Markets expose many great mechanisms like favoring the most efficient players and combining the local or specialized knowledge and resources of the various players intelligently. We know that we need to balance this against imperfect markets where no one has too much power, where externalities like people or nature are exploited or rules are broken to get that extra unfair advantage. We need to make this a truly integrative societal project that brings us not only to success, but again, closer to each other. With potentialism, you could have roughly 10 times higher buying power, work in a top-rated culture and environment with super friendly, supportive people, get coached to become maximally creative, efficient, and have your ideas fairly evaluated, improved, and financed. And before that happens, you can use our insights to get privately, professionally, and financially well through these troubled times. The Potentialism team is perhaps the only truly ethical and good organization and the number one player that has only pursued the best interests of the citizens as its agenda. Potentialism, based on many dozens of years of experience and more than 100 experts, has described a detailed set of innovative and cutting-edge practices to implement a government and such projects on all levels, from the world to regions or states to communities and organizations, with hundreds of synergistic techniques. The order of societal renewal is also critical. How the measures aggregate and synergize, and that's why you should read the full potentialism concept. However, for an overview, here's the key information. 1, it implements over 18 unique selling points, USPs, and over 76 quality criteria for such models. Number 2, it's based on a scientific analysis of most socioeconomic models and finding their best combination of elements in cooperation and under review of more than 10 professors and more than 100 scientists. A maximally scientific analysis of all problems and their solutions. Number 4, the UN SDGs can't be financed according to the UN itself. And even Pope Francis asked for upgraded socioeconomic models. Potentialism is the answer to these requests. Number 5, key ideas. Governments would consist of expert teams which quickly rotate and of which only the speakers' names are made known, which get help from the best AIs to make sure they can efficiently identify the most efficient strategies to solve problems and lead their people into the best possible futures and don't allow space for evil agendas or corruption. The strategies of the various teams would be amalgamated, and the population can vote on which trade-offs to take. Similarly, strategies can be amalgamated among nations for the best possible future for the entire humanity. All payments would be done by the community or ethical government, either through AI or a committee based on the net beneficial value, NBV, of people's work to make sure that beneficial results will be achieved and that fraud won't be possible anymore. Less or non-beneficial activities like marketing would be replaced with a central objective registry. Elimination of most crime, all corruption, and misdirected incentives in favor of efficient collaboration, like for environmental protection. Adopting best practices and innovations of industrial analysts, VCs, and investment banks, but applying and automating them for the good of society. AI to automate everything if desired, to minimize bureaucracy and speed up decisions. Being fed and controlled by humans, AI analyzes and orchestrates everything. State or society remunerates everybody based on NBV of the results of their work instead of random wages. Shifts away from less beneficial work or professions, speculation, marketing, sales, legal work for corporations, towards efficient practical science, innovations, medical, societal, social care, and environmental work. Everything is ethical, avoiding recessions and any disruptions, avoiding exploitation of the world, instead exploiting our creativity and optimizing the entire society, science and R&D. If required, each citizen gets a low universal basic income, UBI. Free education and healthcare is expected to improve their persistency, conscientiousness, and working ideating in flow states. So that's per, con, flow. And collaborative skills, the properties that most likely lead to success in life and are on purpose the root of the name per, con, flow. Accelerated innovation, equal opportunity for all regions with equal politics and thematic clusters of excellence, fair determination of prices, no monopolies. Efficient reinvesting of funds to avoid recessions and suffering. Interest and trade-off based balancing of interests along the amalgamation of optimized objective strategies. Possibly having one cryptocurrency or CBDC as a state's only currency with requirement for valid reasons for payments. This can provide transparency and minimizes corruption and crime. We can also do that for our voting system, by the way. It has the following further USPs. It solves the problems around the capitalist races to the bottom in various fields. Imperfect markets, strategy, and detailed, realistic path towards a bright, fair, high-tech, ethical future for everybody, optimized for the long-term prosperity and well-being of entire societies, systematically addresses all root causes for crime, hate, and psychological issues, systematically minimizes all types of economic wastes to optimize all social and economic outcomes, maximally limit the damage that can be done by any individual or group. It can avert impending cataclysms. It is high time to become active. Good ideas don't spread themselves, especially when there are so many false narratives and beliefs. Thus, please help us by liking, subscribing, and sharing our content and joining our communities. See the links in the description or profile. Feedback is a gift, and we are interested in yours. We're probably the first ones to have a comprehensive analysis of and solution for the Earth's 30 top problems. Find out more and join us under potentialism.net, Potentialism PCF for PerCon Flow on Substack, or under the links provided in the description. Thank you for your precious time.